Comfort Dog Ministry is such a blessing for our church because we are able to do ministry in so many places that the general public just cannot do ministry. And so whether it's with veterans or after disasters, we are invited to come into public schools and into nursing homes and into the lives of people. Asher is enabling us to go and to grow as a church. And one of the places that we're getting to do this is in North Chicago, as we bring the gospel to our neighbors in an underprivileged, underserved community. We've been invited into the public schools there. And so every week we have Asher enabling us to be and bring the gospel witness to our neighbors. And so I want to encourage you to lift up your prayers and to keep Asher and our team in your prayers. And I also want to say a special word of thanks to my friend Dick Hocking, and just a word of appreciation for all that he does in so many parts of our ministry. We look forward to continuing our Comfort Dog ministry in the future. And I want to extend an invitation to anyone who would like to just come and experience the Comfort Dog ministry. Just start out as a helper. Just come to an event and work with a handler as a ministry partner and help out in that way.
And one of the persons who we handed cards to turned out to be a staff person for a major, I guess I would call it a healthcare organization that's located over in Riverwoods. And they're called the Center for Enriched Living. And what they do is they help people who have severe physical and mental disabilities. And there was this one guy that was there in a wheelchair, and as we were walking around with the dog and visiting with people, we walked alongside this one guy in a wheelchair, and we had Asher sit up nice and tall. And he was next to the wheelchair, and one of the staff people came and lifted this person's arm up and put it on top of Asher's head. And the reaction was that this guy suddenly opened up his mouth wide, and he was as smiling as he could possibly do. And the staff person said, "Oh, you just made him so happy." And, it's that kind of reaction that you always remember of people who have a fairly tough existence, but the fact that he can touch the furry head of this white dog made a whole big difference to him. So for me as a handler, I thank the Lord for the opportunity in which we are able to reach out to people in sometimes very difficult situations.
We take Asher to visit the patients at Radford Green, which is the long-term care and rehabilitation center at Sedgebrook in Lincolnshire. And one of the things we always do when we go there is we visit a lady, Mrs. E, who is confined to her bed, and she can't ever leave her room. She has very little mobility, and she can only pet Asher with one hand. She just loves Asher and looks so forward to days when he can be there. And at first, she has a caretaker that is with her all the time, at least during the day when we're there. And we knock on the door and ask the caretaker if we can visit the lady, and if she's awake, he'll let us in. Otherwise, if she was asleep, he would say, "No, she's sleeping." So we would just go and visit the other patients. Well, Mrs. E got wind of this, that we were being sent away, and she said, "Wake me up. When Asher comes, please wake me up." So now and it's one of the best parts of her day. This woman can never leave her room. And in the memory care unit, some of the people can barely speak anymore. But when they see Asher, they perk up, they start smiling, and they may even be able to tell us something about a dog they had. So this is very rewarding. I'm very blessed that I've been given this opportunity, and I think it's a wonderful program, and it helps not only the people we visit, but it helps the handlers.
over the past few months especially, have had the opportunity to take Asher into the middle school in North Chicago and meet with all the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and it's really been a blessing and an opportunity of comfort for the middle schoolers. Just a great thing to be there. One instance in particular that stood out to me is just about my second time there. When I pulled up to the school, there was an ambulance outside, which obviously is not a good sign. And going into the school, I discovered that one of the students had just fallen down the stairs, and in the end, he ended up being fine. No long-term injuries or anything, but it was really just a bit of God's timing to be there right after something like that had happened, and have the opportunity to travel throughout the school and just give comfort to those that were unsure of what was going to happen to their friend. They didn't know at that time. And so it's been great to be there for that, and just a blessing to go back each week and share with them just a little bit of comfort to brighten their day, give them a chance to let out some of whatever anxiety they have.
I wanted to tell you a little bit about my greatest memories of Asher and how he makes a difference in the lives of individuals. Those mostly revolve around times that I've spent visiting members, either in their residences or care facilities, or in critical care settings, such as hospitals and urgent care centers. One of my most memorable care receivers was a member named Betty. I'd been visiting Betty for some time off and on, as at the time that Asher joined our ministry. From the first time I took Asher to introduce him to her, she began to open up more. Betty truly delighted in telling me about her childhood and the pets she had while growing up. Later, as Betty neared the end of her earthly life, she was mostly unable or disinterested in conversing, or even opening her eyes. She mostly enjoyed listening to Bible readings and prayer and creed recitations, except when Asher accompanied me. At those times, her entire demeanor was improved. She was more alert. She opened her eyes to see him. Her favorite times with him were when Asher was asked to rise with his front legs on the edge of her bed. She truly delighted in his presence.
One of the areas that Asher and I work particularly in together is the area of military personnel. He is dual vested in what we call the Care9 program, and Care9 dogs deal with not only veterans but also the families of veterans and active duty military personnel in the area. We've had the honor and the pleasure to go to a program called Camp Hometown Heroes several times in the last few years. And it's a very special camp. It's a camp designed for young people between the ages of roughly 8 and 16 who share one thing in common. They have lost a parent while in the military services of the United States. One of the events that they do is the closing night. They have a talent show, and the kids get to put on a talent show which they design and do themselves, and it usually includes singing and dancing. After that was over, they have a special program, the closing ceremony, out at the swimming pool. We noticed a commotion at the far end of the pool and didn't know what it was, but the senior counselor from the camp started walking in our direction, and when she got about 40 feet away, she said, "Are you Asher?" I said, "No, but he is." She said, he's in big demand. There's a boy that's in a crisis mode right now, and he just keeps asking for Asher. He just wants to be with Asher." And so she said, "Can you come with me?" And we picked up and immediately started walking rapidly down to the other end of the pool. And I asked her, "Is there anything special that we should know about this young man?" His name was Ryan. And she said, "Well, yes." She said, "He lost his father in Afghanistan 3 years ago. And he lost his brother 3 weeks ago." And, it kind of hits you like a rock. And So we went down there, and everybody cleared out to make room for Asher, and he laid down right alongside the boy. He was sitting kind of Indian style by the edge of the pool, and Asher laid right down with his body along the young man's leg, and he put his head down in his lap, and that young man, just hugged him and talked to him, and it was a very, very emotional time. And that period lasted for about 15 minutes, and finally the program had wound up, and the decision was made to relocate Ryan into the nurse's office where he could be in private and a little more quiet solitude. And they asked if Asher could join him, and so Asher and I went in and spent another half hour or so with the young man. And by the time we left, he had regained his composure and everything, but it was an incredible example of God's love in action. His mercy and the mercy and compassion of Jesus Christ just shone through the moment, and seeing the power of the dogs, as we refer to them, and I call Asher our furry little counselor, and he certainly is every bit of that. And it was a remarkable evening and a remarkable demonstration on both Asher's part and God's.
Unfortunately, been to a couple of post-tragic events, and they've all been good experiences, but there's one thing that really stands out for me that's very memorable, and that happens to be the time after the shooting in Highland Park. About a week after the tragedy, they had finally opened up the main streets. The memorial had been east of where the tragedy took place. It had been closed off. But then they finally opened up the main street and opened up the courtyard. And as we were there, this little girl, and I mean little, like maybe 2 years old, maybe she was a year and a half, I'm not sure, seemed to fall in love with Asher. She came up to him, and she was just loving on him and petting him, and she'd run away, and then she'd come back, and she'd run away, and she'd sit. And so I squatted down, and then I wound up sitting, and I would be talking to her about the dog, and she would pet his ears and his tail, and she'd run around to the other side and rub his tummy, and then she'd run a little bit away. And I looked up, and I saw a young woman there who I came to understand was her mom, and her mom kind of kept her distance. And then her mom was talking with a gentleman who I later came to understand was her dad, and her dad kept even a further distance. But Mom did kind of start inching forward and getting closer to her little girl, as her little girl was just enamored with Asher. And as she got a little closer, I just looked at her and I said, "Boy, this has been hard, hasn't it?" And she looked at me and she said, "Yeah." And she turned around and she pointed and said, "We were sitting right there, and the bullets were like right next to us." And she said, "We just grabbed her and we ran. We were so afraid." And she said, "To tell you the truth, we haven't been out of our house for 7 days. We've been so afraid. My little girl hasn't been sleeping. She wakes up screaming in the nights. I wake up crying. It's been really scary." And then she said, "But you know what? We decided to come here today. They opened up the street, so here we are tonight." And she said, "This is the first time since that day that my little girl has laughed." And then she started crying. Mom did. And then I started crying. But it was a moment. And the dad kept getting closer, but he never got in conversation with us. But at that moment, and even looking back on it, I realized to be showing the love of God and the love of Jesus, you just need to be there. It doesn't take anything else. Just be there. Be present and let people tell their story. So this was a baby step for them to start to heal as their little girl giggled and laughed and petted Asher.
Hi, I'm Julie Morrison. I'm the state senator from the area, and I wanted to take a minute to thank you, all of you, for all the support that you have given Highland Park in particular through your mission of Asher. The people who are suffering, the people who are in pain or fear, they don't get to see all of you. It takes a lot of people to support a dog. It takes the handlers, the trainers, the providers, the caregivers, but it also takes your congregation to financially support Asher. I wanted to thank you for all the people that you've helped, you'll continue to help, and that you'll probably never get a chance to meet or see. I hear Asher's having a birthday, and I'm going to be sending Asher a check, so I hope that he can start a fund to get ready to purchase his new best friend, his replacement. At 9, he's probably got a little time left to work, but he does a lot. So probably time to be thinking about his next best friend who he can help mentor. Anyway, I wanted to just take a minute and thank you, let you know what an impact your work, your mission has on people in the community, and just to encourage you to stay with it. Many thanks for everything that you have done and will continue to do.